Hello and welcome back to the Winning Agenda. My name is Jesse Muirman Marshall. It's 26th of April 2022 and we've just had two really exciting announcements in the last 48 hours. So I know I've done a lot of sort of discussion videos lately rather than deck techs and things like that, but that's because there's been so much going on. It's really just been a massive couple of weeks in Flesh and Blood. And so today I just wanted to talk about the two most exciting announcements that have probably come out recently. The first one is Uprising. I know FAB 2.0 was huge and it touched on Uprising, but I'm super excited after seeing everything that's come out in this announcement today, which I'm going to dive into in a minute. And of course, the second one is the banned and restricted announcement. Now, I made a video a couple of weeks ago about the banned and restricted announcement that LSS sort of pushed back to the 2nd of May and articulated the reasons why I thought it was not the greatest thing that it got pushed back, particularly from an international player perspective, and that I wasn't looking forward to waiting till the 2nd of May to find out what I was going to be playing at the Pro Tour, or to be able to test. And I'm really grateful. I just wanted to say at the top of the video, shout out to LSS. Very, very grateful to you for pulling forward that announcement by a week and giving us international players effectively an extra week to test the new format and to get our heads around it before we have to leave the country to attend the Pro Tour. So I'll get more into that later when we get to the text of that announcement. But first up, Uprising. So a lot of you would have seen the FAB 2.0 announcement spoiled the name of this Uprising set. And then over the last few days, we've had a range of new cards spoiled specifically around Iyslander's journey. So Iyslander will actually, I should bring those up here as well, because we'll start with that. Where are we? Iyslander's journey. The first element, some amazing lore in this article, firstly, that you should totally read if you've got time. But the actual cards that have been spoiled, we've got an adult version of Iyslander, so Iyslander Stormbound. It's got 36 life and 4 intellect, and of course the same ability as the young Iyslander. And we've got some really impactful ice cards. So we saw this over the last few days. We saw this being spoiled. I won't go into each of them in detail, but I will say Pry from Everfest has become somewhat of a meme card for us. I don't know if it's the artwork or the card itself, but it's not the most powerful card. However, when you pair it with Channel the Bleak Expanse, this new card that's just been spoiled for Iyslander, that is a channel, just like Channel Lake Frigid. It's an ice card, but it says heroes can't reveal cards, search decks, or draw cards from effects. Obviously, Hose is Crown of Seeds. Hose is like a range of other things. Revealing is everything that involves fusing. It's Starvo itself. And searching decks is anything that involves searching for answers in your deck, or tutoring if you like. But the drawing cards actually means that if Iyslander plays Pry, Blue Pry specifically, as an instant from Arsenal on the opponent's turn, with Channel the Bleak Expanse out, they get to make the opponent get rid of a card from hand, and they don't get to draw a replacement. So that's a one little interesting card interaction that I wanted to note there. So we might be seeing Blue Pry in some Iyslander decks. But more importantly, we've just got a range of really interesting things. We've got our first Ice Wizard action in Ice Bolt. It's just 2 resources for 3 arcane damage, a block 3 at blue. So, same rate as what you're looking at on Voltic Bolt, but you get it as an Ice Bolt instead. And then we've got a few other things, including some new mechanics for Iyslander spoiled. We've got this new, where are we? Encase and Afflictions. So we've got Hypothermia, which is an affliction. It's an affliction that enters the arena under an opposing hero's control. It stops them from gaining go again on their attacks. And then, of course, we've got Frost Hex, which is another affliction. This is an Iyslander specialization, and it makes all your Frostbites explode and deal an arcane damage to the opponent at the end of their turn. So both of these really exciting. I mean, Hypothermia expires at the end of the end phase, whereas Frost Hex doesn't have any expiration, so it stays in play forever. And a lot of people straight away were sort of wondering, well, how do we deal with Frost Hex? Well, the next day we got the answer, and that is Thor. And so this was the first time that we saw Draconic spoiled as a new talent. People weren't sure, is it a class or a talent? But as we'll see in a moment in the Uprising announcement that happened today, that question was answered, and it is in fact a talent. So Thor is the first Draconic card that we saw. It's a 2-cost Draconic attack. It blocks for 2 and attacks for 6. And while it's in your graveyard, at the start of your turn, you can banish it and choose one. Destroy target Frostbite, destroy target Ice Affliction, or unfreeze target frozen card. So that's extremely powerful. I mean, this is a Majestic. You get a 2 for 6. You know, it's on raid. It's the same stats as Command and Conquer, but you don't get the abilities of Command and Conquer. But what you do get is this amazing ability for free at the start of your turn. You pretty much get to counter one of your opponent's really powerful spells. You know, we've seen with those afflictions already, those ice afflictions, they are extremely powerful effects that your opponent has to, in Frost Hex's example, pay some resources for, and you just get to get rid of it for free at the beginning of your turn. So having some Thors in your deck against those ice decks is going to be really, really powerful. So we've got some very powerful effects on the ice side, and then some very powerful counters on the Draconic side already spoiled. And then today, day 5 of Iyslander's journey, we got this amazing article announcing Uprising. So it's a standalone booster set, and in the first couple of paragraphs here, we see spoiled that we've got Dromai, a new Imperial Illusionist, able to conjure the legendary dragons of Volcor out of Ether and Ash, and Fei, a hot-headed ninja who spearheads the Uprising against the draconian oppression of the Imperials. So a lot of people have been speculating already that both Fei and Dromai are going to be Draconic heroes. But personally, I stand to be corrected very quickly in the next couple of days when LSS no doubt confirms these things. But to me, the fact that Fei's talent has not yet been spoiled, and the fact that it mentions here that Fei is opposed to the draconian oppression of the Imperials. Draconian and Draconic, not exactly the same thing, but sound quite similar, and I imagine is somewhat of a deliberate word choice. And does somewhat indicate to me that perhaps Fei is not a draconic ninja, but may have another talent. That being said, there are a few other things that point to the idea that Fei may in fact be draconic. One is the fact that they seem to be surrounded by flame. The other one is that their Blitz deck box, which we'll see in a moment, seems to be the same sort of framing as Dromai's. But, you know, we'll wait and see what happens there. But suffice it to say, it is confirmed in this little section of the article that Dromai is a Draconic Illusionist. So it's an Illusionist with the Draconic talent and has the ability through an as yet undisclosed card to summon an ally. So ally was a mechanic that we first saw in Monarch in the form of Eclipse and Doomsday, summoning Ursa and Blasmafet. And since then we haven't seen any more allies in Everfest or Tales of Aria. And in Uprising, we're going to see, it looks like, 3 dragon allies. The first of which is Dracona Optimi. So Dracona Optimi is a 6 power ally, 6 attack, and also 6 life. When Dracona Optimi attacks a hero, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and Dracona Optimi deals arcane damage equal to the number of red cards revealed this way, that's red pitch cards, to them or an ally they control. So you're getting the 6 damage from the attack, plus potentially up to 3 extra arcane damage as well. That's pretty powerful. So we'll have to wait and see what the summoning condition is. The other element to this here is that we've seen the Marvel card face is going to be very much like the Mentors from the Blitz decks in Monarch. So it's a full bleed, and of course it's got that little triangle-shaped rarity symbol as well. So not yet confirmed whether we were correct in terms of the framing of the Marvels in our Sherlock Holmes attempt to decode what the class was going to be. I think my guess in the end was Shadow Illusionist. I think I was pretty close. It looks like it may well be a Draconic Illusionist border. I haven't yet done my little copy-paste snipping to compare this to the one in the announcement, but that Draconic Illusionist Dragon ally border does look very, very similar to the one in the original Uprising spoiler article. So that may be the frame that they used. But anyway, Illusionists, maybe we weren't too far off with our guess. So some other information that we glean from this announcement before we get onto the events, which is kind of the second part of this that I'm super excited about, is that it looks, so in the text, I think it's just up here a little further. Yeah, it's designed for exceptional booster draft, sealed deck, and constructed play. Now, there are only 3 heroes revealed to date. So there's Iyslander, there's Fei, and there's Dromai. If Fei and Dromai do share a Draconic talent, and then we've got Iyslander as an ice hero, that's kind of an awkward 3-hero limited environment. It may well be that they have a set with 2/3 Draconic talent cards and 1/3 ice cards. Maybe that's the direction they've gone. But when we get down to the set information and the marketing information that they've given us, it is a little bit unclear whether we are going to have, I'm just trying to remember where it is. No, it's in the marketing materials, whether we're going to have a fourth hero or not. So people are speculating based on the lore in the Iyslander article whether we're going to get Shayana as an adult hero, or perhaps another hero. We can see here very cheekily, LSS has given us a Blitz deck display with only 2 Blitz decks in it. I mean, are those going to be the only 2 Blitz decks, or are we going to see 2 boxes of Blitz decks, one with Dromai and I forget the name, what is it, Fei, of course, Fei for fire. One with Dromai and Fei, or one with Iyslander, and one with Iyslander and the 4th hero, or is Iyslander just not going to have a Blitz deck at all? Remains to be seen, but as usual, LSS very coy and careful not to give away anything extra, and at the moment, all we know is that there's going to be at least 3 heroes in the set. There's also going to be, so we see here in the Blitz decks, there's a Rainbow Foil hero card, as with previously. There are 8 decks per display, 4 of each hero, 4 displays per case. So at this stage, it looks like there's only the 2 Blitz decks, and 40 card pre-constructed decks, hero, weapon, and equipment cards, so very, very much the same thing as previously. In terms of the configuration of the actual set itself, a 226 card set, 6 legendaries, which if it follows the Tales of Aria format, could be 1 legendary for each of the heroes that they specifically can use with their talent and class, and then 1 for each of their classes. Or if it follows the Monarch methodology of allocation, it could be 1 per talent and then 1 per class if we have 4 heroes in the set. So 4 heroes, 4 different classes, and then 2 overarching talents. That would mean that we'd either have to have these 2 heroes both being Draconic, Fei and Dromai, and then Iyslander and another ice hero if it was to follow the Monarch configuration, or perhaps an untalented hero, though that seems unlikely, and then 1 legendary for each of their classes. Or we might see these 3 heroes being the only 3, and the 3 classes, and then 3 talents. But again, then Fei would need to have a different talent in order for that configuration of legendaries to make sense. So that all remains to be seen, but the 6 legendaries does point to a likelihood that either Fei will have a different talent, or there will be a 4th hero of a different class. 27 Majestics, 51 Rares, 125 Commons, 16 Tokens, and an undisclosed number of Marvels. So of course in Tales of Aria we effectively had 1 Marvel, which was Channel Lake Frigid. I guess you could maybe count the Cold Foil Pulses as Marvels as well. It remains to be seen whether we're going to have Cold Foil Marvels or if it'll just be kind of the Extended Arts. Although they did mention that the Extended Art Earthlore bounty in the Cold Foil version was the sort of thing that they would in future characterize as a Marvel. So that makes it sound like there will be Cold Foil Marvels, in which case the Pulses are probably the sort of thing that would fall into that category. And then back in Monarch, we had, of course, the 3 Extended Art Majestics, Rainbow Foils, which are the sort of things that we would expect to see as Marvels in the future. So we don't know how many there are, but there will certainly be some number, including, it looks like, an Extended Art version of each of the dragons. So how do we know that there are 3 dragons in the set before we get onto the world premiere events? It's because we got the art for each of them spoiled. So we got Draconic Optimi, who we've already seen the card for. We've got Dominia, which is this incredible art by Steve Argyle. I was completely blown away by this. It's a gorgeous piece of dragon art with a very cool looking flame breath, possibly some icy element towards the top of that, although it does clearly end in fire, and maybe that's just some very hot blue flame going on there. But yeah, it remains to be seen in what way the ice element of Iyslander will tie into this, if at all, bearing in mind that Iyslander isn't a native of Volcor, where these dragons originate. And then we've got Tormeltai, which is a pretty cool take on a dragon, not something that I've actually seen. I've observed a lot of different fantasy art over time, but this is more of, I guess, a Balrog interpretation of a dragon, where you've got the flame living inside and then just sort of shooting out of the chest in all sorts of random directions. So this looks like a particularly anarchic sort of dragon that's just willing to dish out some punishment everywhere. But suffice it to say, from all of these 3 dragon arts, it looks like the people of Volcor are in for a pretty rough time in Uprising. So coming back to the Uprising announcement today, another element of it that I was super excited about were these world premiere events. Because, drumroll please, for those of us in Australia, we are finally going to get another calling. We had the Calling Melbourne scheduled for last year. It had to be pushed back. I think it was from March to July. And then that abandoned altogether because of lockdowns. And now, finally, we're seeing a world premiere event encompassing a team blitz calling in Sydney, Australia. There will also be 2 of these events in Madrid and Las Vegas. So we've got one in Europe, one in Oceania, thankfully for me in Australia, not too far away from me as well in Australia, and then one in Las Vegas for our US players. So these world premiere events are going to feature, quote unquote, a massive sealed deck event on Friday, a team blitz calling on Saturday. And can I just say, I mean, I know that I'm not the biggest fan of blitz, but team blitz, anytime I get a chance to play a team big event like this, I'm totally in. So I'm going to be teaming up with 2 other players, heading along to this team blitz calling with, of course, the 3 different heroes per team, and doing our best to try and win. But well done, LSS, for putting on a team event, because team events are just so good. And for those of us who likes to battle to the very end, a battle hardened to round out the weekend on Sunday, which will hopefully be classic constructed for a bit of a refresher after team blitz calling on Saturday. For those of us who don't make day 2 on the calling, but of course I'll be hoping to be there on day 2. The legendary Dragons of Volcor are descending upon world premiere events with a legendary Dragons of Volcor playmat exclusive to the Uprising world premiere weekend, plus specific Dragon Shields 100 count sleeves with these dragons art on them. So over the next 3 days, they're going to reveal which of the dragons are for which of the events, but we can already see which of them it is from the tiles here. So it looks like Sydney is going to be getting, what's the name here? I think I already closed it. The Steve Argyle dragon. Tomiltai is going to be at Madrid. And Draconic Optimi is going to be there in Las Vegas. So super exciting for those of us who can make it along to those world premiere events. Can't wait for that. So that's kind of all that we know about Uprising for now. Will there be a 4th hero? We're not sure. What will Fei's talent be? Again, we're not sure. And what will the rest of the Marvels look like? What will the rest of this Draconic versus ice, melting the frozen sort of hexes that the ice heroes are going to be placing? What's all that going to look like? We don't know. But what we do know so far is we've got 3 really cool looking dragons. We've got Marvels that look really awesome in the form of those that ally. We've got allies returning, and we've got Illusionist and Ninja, 2 classes that only had 1 adult hero up until now, getting their 2nd adult hero, and it looks like a really different spin on how to play with those classes. So I'm super excited. This is a very, very cool announcement. I love that LSS has put these world premiere triple calling weekends in the announcement as well, you know, giving us some really amazing excitement. Of June 10 to 12 is not that far away, about actually being able to get our hands on these cards and play them in that sealed deck environment, as well as a team calling. So woohoo, well done LSS, great announcement. Now, as I touched on earlier, we also had the banned and suspended announcement brought forward to the 25th of April from the 2nd of May. So again, I'll just reiterate, thank you so much LSS for doing this. It makes a huge difference to those of us coming from overseas, and I'm incredibly grateful to you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. In terms of the announcement itself, I'm going to mainly focus on the classic constructed changes because they affect the Pro Tour that's coming up. But of course, the Blitz changes are also going to affect these 3 team Blitz callings. So they're really, really important as well. So in Classic Constructed, Starvo was hit with an Awakening ban and an Autumn's Touch suspension until Bravo Star of the Show becomes Living Legend. These are, I think, really solid changes. They tone down the power of Bravo Star of the Show slightly, particularly in the aggro matchups, but also in the mirror. I think one thing that a lot of people have kind of glossed over is how degenerate Awakening was in the Starvo mirror. And one of the things that made it really miserable to play was the knowledge that, and LSS touches on this later in the article, that if you set up your turns really well, played very methodically, knew your deck, planned out your ways to take tempo and control of the game, and executed perfectly, your opponent can just play Awakening for 2 resources. In combination with Crown of Seeds, it's just such a minimal amount of resources to have to put into something, and 1 card from hand, and they get to come back at you with a free Crippling Crush or Oak and Old potentially, you know, the following turn, which is just, it's really miserable basically. And I didn't like the feeling that a lot of Starvo mirrors often came down to like who draws more of their awakenings, and even when you're ahead, you just felt like you couldn't really close out the game, and you had to kind of do this weird dance of trying to manage life totals and manage your own life total to keep it close to your opponents, and it's just not good stuff. So I'm glad Awakening's gone. I think it'll really improve the Starvo mirrors. And removing Autumn's Touch, or suspending it until Starvo's gone, is a really great way to reduce to exacerbate, I guess, what was already the biggest weakness of the Starvo decks, which was the block twos. You always knew that they were going to have to play a range of block twos that were not very powerful. So if they had to block with the other cards in their hand, with all their 3 blocks, they were probably going to be left with some pretty mediocre cards. Like it was probably going to be a swing with the hammer coming back the other way, or maybe a really low powered attack if they were going to play, Heaven's Claws or something like that. But by removing Autumn's Touch, you remove even more of the 3 blocks. You remove essentially all the superfluous 3 blocks from the deck, so that every 3 block is now going to be like a relevant Guardian attack or something relevant that they probably want to hold on to, which means that if you're attacking Starvo, and you can present relevant on hits, you're now even more likely to be hitting. Just that little bit more likely each turn. 9 3 blocks turning into 9 2 blocks in the deck is relevant. Or if Starvo chooses not to just straight up switch those Autumn's Touches into Evergreens, and they choose to play more Guardian attacks instead, then they're reducing their likelihood of fusing, which means decks like Chain that are going to demand that Starvo try and hit them with relevant attacks early might have more of a chance to actually grind out advantage towards the mid game, and then force Starvo onto the back foot. And acknowledging that Awakening's also gone, it's going to be even harder for Starvo to pivot back from that position. So I'm excited to test this. I'm excited to see what this looks like. And heading into the Pro Tour, I'm looking forward to seeing whether Starvo remains the star of the show. Skeleta being suspended until Vizirai's gone, I mean, it's brutal. I've seen a lot of Vizirai mains out there, or people who are planning on playing Vizirai at the Pro Tour, feeling pretty aggrieved at the fact that poor old Vizirai hasn't really had its time in the sun. I mean, I completely agree with LSS's reasoning here. They say Vizirai's in a strange place. He's had relatively low tournament win percentage, unfavorable matchup into Bravo, but he is proven potent at dispatching most other heroes, and their data leads them to believe there's a high risk that Vizirai becomes the next overly dominant hero in the wake of Bravo being tamed. I understand that reasoning, and I was really concerned about Vizirai if Starvo was toned down a tad. I would have much preferred them hit Revel in Runeblood. I think Revel in Runeblood is the offensive card to the game. It breaks the power ceiling of what cards should do. It's far too efficient. It's far too good. A 0 for 7 on a Mordred Tide turn is just completely outrageous, and a 0 for 5 on other turns for Vizirai, and with those 5 instances being split into 5 separate instances of arcane damage. I think getting rid of Skeleta Sonata combo, yes, I can understand it. That combo's strong, but it does feel a little bit like gutting Vizirai's identity at this point, taking away that majestic chess piece and the Sonata Skeleta combo. But it remains to be seen whether, with Revel in Runeblood and all the other powerful pieces still intact, Vizirai can still manage to put on enough pressure to outrace and gatekeep the format from all those other aggro decks. There'll be lots of testing to be done by Pro Tour players in that respect. Seeds of Agony, moving from banned to suspended till Chain becomes Living Legend. Not really a change. I mean, Chain's the only hero that can play that card at the moment. If they release another Shadow Runeblade after Chain Bound by Shadow becomes Living Legend, maybe this will be relevant, maybe it'll get unsuspended and that hero will want to play it, but I anticipate that this move will be of very little consequence, and it is of no consequence now. So all of those changes, as I said, I agree with LSS's reasoning. I think Starvo remains strong. It remains to be seen how strong, and whether there are any aggro decks that can put on consistent on-hit pressure to tame Starvo's average win rate into them. Vizirai got absolutely clobbered by the Skeleta suspension. I would have rather see Revel in Runeblood gone to keep that iconic combo together and keep Vizirai's access to Skeleta, but it is what it is, and we'll have to test it to see how it goes. Blitz has had its first Living Legend. We've got Vizirai reach Living Legend, which I actually didn't kind of clock that was on the cards. So well done, Vizirai. Congratulations to all those players who piloted Vizirai to make it Living Legend. We've also got a range of other bans, which is like pretty strong list of bans and suspensions here. So Awakening's banned, fair enough. Heart and Crossstrap is banned. Not really sure on the justification of that one. Seeds of Agony, same issue, or same non-issue. Once chain's gone, can't play it anyway. Snapback is suspended till the next scheduled announcement following the conclusion of Skirmish Season 5. Same with Sonata and Stir. So we're not seeing Escalator gone here because we have Viscerize gone, so we haven't got the same issue. But Sonata is suspended, so we're losing Scalita from Classic Constructed. We're losing Sonata from Blitz, but Briar and Chain will still be able to play the Scalita. This is disappointing. I love Sonata. It's a fun card. I can understand. Viscerize is obviously really strong. It's obviously put up really strong performances. Again, I think Revel in Runeblood is kind of the culprit here as to what's pushing the power level over the edge. I really like Sonata as a design and as a card. I would have preferred that interaction be kept. But I can also understand that people don't necessarily like playing into that game style and that it can lead to some early kills. Again, would have liked to see Revel get the chop instead, but it is what it is. Stir the Aetherwind, suspended until the next announcement as well. Stir, people don't like getting blown up by Kano, fair enough. I think Kano still had some pretty challenging matchups in this format, as was evidenced by what's happened at the callings, both with Viserai, but also with some of the Guardians. Kano did have some tools to combat those decks, but yeah, I don't know how necessary this was. Perhaps we're going to see some things coming out in the next set. Of course, there are Wizard cards that are going to be released in the next set, and maybe Stir was just going to be too pushed. Based on the current metagame, I'm not sure whether I agree with that, it being such an integral part to both Kano and potentially what Iyslander is doing, enabling Iyslander to play things like Aether Wildfire, but Stir's gone. So bad luck to Kano players in Blitz, although I will say Kano in Classic Constructed is, yes, not quite there. It's tier 2, maybe tier 3. But with the new cards from Uprising, you can still play Stir in Classic Constructed, and maybe we'll see Kano or Iyslander bringing some Wizard into the Classic Constructed metagame as well. So that's pretty much it. We've got some of the justifications. Yeah, Kano's able to end the game as early as turn 1. Yeah, they don't think the win level was problematic, but they want Kano to be more restrained. That's conducive to a better overall player experience. I don't know. Not convinced on that, but it is what it is. Heart and Crosstrap is a no question to ask. Start in play, 1-turn kill combo enabler. They think it will become a common centerpiece of OTK decks if it remains legal, and they want to slow the format down. Look, I'm all for slowing the format down. That makes sense to me. As they say, it hasn't particularly had a glamorous existence, hasn't done a lot to date. But if they're concerned about it and they're preemptively wanting to do this to try and slow the card down, that's fine. Slow the format down, that's fine with me. So that is what it is. It's going to be really interesting to explore both Blitz and Classic Constructed with these changes. I'm super excited for the next week or week and a half of testing for the Pro Tour before I fly out of Australia. And heading back to Uprising, I can't wait to get my hands on this set, get some more spoilers, find out whether Fei is a Draconic ninja, find out whether there's a 4th hero in the set, and see all the great new tools that Illusionists and Wizards are going to get. I hope you've enjoyed this update. If you have any thoughts about what talent you think Fei is going to have, or whether you think there's going to be another hero, do let me know in the comments. If there's anything that I've missed, any little Easter eggs or spoilers in here that I haven't noticed. And for those of you in Australia, I really look forward to seeing you at the Sydney Calling in a couple of months' time, or less than 2 months' time. Also, for those of you Australian players, as you know, Underground Games, that's www.undergroundgamesbh.com.au, has been a great supporter of the channel. If you do get a moment to head along, they're actually supporting me to go to the Pro Tour, which is really amazing, and thank you so much to Rob there for doing that. And if you do want to pick up some singles, either for the new formats or for upcoming tournaments, head along to www.undergroundgamesbh.com.au and use the code TWA5, that's the winning agenda, TWA5, to get 5% off and support the channel. So thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, head along to Underground Games if you want to support the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Cheers.